You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Pod 99 of the Gerry Anderson Podcast with you, Richard James, and me, Jamie Anderson. I'm very excited. Can you tell?
Yes, I can tell. Calm down. Pod 99.
Sorry.
Jamie, I think we should have a little flake, really, shouldn't we? It's just stuck in the top.
Oh, yeah. Now, why is it called a 99 with a flake, or a 99 flake, or whatever the actual
because
thing is?
they were 99p when they first appeared, perhaps?
That sounds like a good suggestion.
Yeah. Don't know.
Podsterons, if you know the answer, please do email Podsterons. No, not that, Podsterons. You can email that too, but podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk would be better. You think after 99 episodes I'd get the email address right, Richard?
Well, really? Yeah, but you don't know you like we know you, Jamie.
That is very true.
We're not surprised.
What an idiot I am. So, what's coming up this week in Pod 99 of the Gerry Anderson Podcast?
Well, I'm amazed you have to ask, frankly, because it's more the same. No, actually,
really?
I do have the odd surprise for you, Jamie.
Oh, no.
So keep your ears peeled. A little later on, we've got Chris Dale's amazing Randomiser, of course, everyone's favourite part of the show, whereby he sits down in front of a random Gerry Anderson episode and gives us his thoughts and comments. We've got some news from the Gerry Anderson universe. We'll be returning always, to Plot of Peril. Just a quick reminder that I'll be announcing a winner next week, so you have just 1 week left to get your entries in for the Plot of Peril. All will be explained a little later on. We've got some FAB Facts coming up, as ever. We've got emails. People have been emailing to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. I'm going to read out some tweets, because people have been tweeting us and hashtagging us, #Gerry Anderson Podcast. And I'll be reading some messages from our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, where people have been having lots of fun. And we've got the second part of our interview, haven't we, Jamie?
We do indeed, with VFX supervisor and consultant Paul J. Franklin of DNEG.
Yes.
And we talk about a Thunderbirds related DNEG thing, which is rather exciting and interesting. So, yes, lots to look forward to there.
Now, that was alluded to in our little introduction there, I think, wasn't it? The Thunderbirds film that never was. Is that right?
Yeah, yes. No, any Thunderbirds aficionado will be aware that, as with many Anderson shows, there are lots of aborted attempts to reboot them and bring them back at various stages. And the film that eventually became the 2004 Thunderbirds movie was originally greenlit in the late 90s with a different story, very different feel to it, but they'd done some vehicle designs and various other bits and pieces, and Paul had some involvement with that, so he will tell you about that, including some elements of the story which some of you may be aware of, maybe not yet.
Okay.
But you certainly will be by the end of Pod 99 of the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
If you learn nothing else today, you'll learn that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So it's well worth it. And also, bits and pieces about Paul's career and stuff he's worked on. And I think I even asked him what Gerry Anderson show he would reboot if he could.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah.
The answer he gave was most unexpected.
Oh, was there a little clue in the way you said that?
Nah, not really, no. But, maybe. Yeah, you'll have to wait and see, won't you?
Yes, we will. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, well, shall we get on to everybody's favourite bit?
Oh, the randomiser? Already? You're pulling that up front, are you? What?
No, Richard.
What?
I mean Fab Facts.
Of course.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Fab Facts, Richard, your favourite part, as everyone will know by now. Yes, I've got a book of... yes, it is. I've got a book of Fab Facts. I'm going to flick through. You're going to shout Fab, stop me flipping, and then I'm going to read out something from around that era or page or whatever. So don't wait too long today.
Okay.
As I begin flicking, here we go.
Fab! How's that? Yeah, good?
Yeah, you went sooner than I thought. So we're in the late 1960s today.
Okay, yeah.
It's quite a nice place to be.
Yeah, well, I remember it well.
And I'm thrilled to see that this Fab Fact concerns the young Joe 90.
It's like all your Christmases have come at once.
Yeah. Anyway, so Joe 90 launched in 1968, as you well know.
Yeah.
And one of the obvious merchandising avenues for this new show was a comic strip, because they'd had some success with a little comic thing called TV21.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that, yeah.
Which you may be aware of,
yeah.
The only problem was everything in TV21 until that point had been in the future. Now, we can argue over 2026 or 2065 for Thunderbirds, but everything was, certainly, 60, 80 years in the future.
Yeah.
But Joe 90 felt a lot more contemporary, so it wouldn't really fit into the world of TV21.
Okay.
Fireball, yes. Stingray, yes. Thunderbirds, yes. Captain Scarlet, great. All in a kind of... they were in a shared TV21 universe, so they could have mixed adventures, all that sort of thing. But Joe wasn't going to fit. He was the odd one out. So he got his own comic. Called Joe 90, Top Secret.
Oh, I like it.
It's a great title, isn't it?
Yes.
Unfortunately, Joe 90 was inside. But very much like TV21, this new comic was going to also contain non-Anderson TV shows. And in the case of Joe 90 Top Secret, things like Land of the Giants
and
the Champions, and some show that I'm not sure any of our listeners will ever have heard of. It's called Star Trek.
Oh, that rings a bell, yeah.
Anyway, so this Star Trek strip in Joe 90 Top Secret was written by British writers and drawn by British artists, including the legendary late Mike Noble, who we had on the podcast many, it feels like years ago, but certainly tens of pods ago. So do pop back and listen to him, because he was a great artist and a lovely chap. But there was a little bit of a problem in the initial phases of this new comic.
Yeah.
Joe 90 launched in January 1969. Okay, the comic. Star Trek, however, didn't appear on the BBC until July 1969. So... bit of a problem there, because nobody working on this new Star Trek strip actually knew what the show was like.
Great.
So the artists were given some pictures of the cast and of the Enterprise, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
So all those early installments of the strip were a bit odd, to say the least.
Yeah, like what?
In this Joe 90 Top Secret version of Star Trek, the nuclear rocket-powered Universe Starship Enterprise was manned by a crew of thousands.
Right.
And it travelled the universe under the command of Captain Kurt.
Oops.
Together with his rather shouty Vulcanite First Officer Spock.
Okay.
And Spock and the rest of the crew referred to Captain Kurt as Skipper.
Ooh, that's not right, is it? How odd.
It's weird, isn't it? So this Enterprise could actually land on planets.
Okay, like to see that.
And the crew generally blundered around, causing genocide, playing football with giant gorillas. A bit of a mess, but great fun, that. Anyway, so although the artist working on the ship in the early days, Harry Lindfield, had reference photos of the Enterprise, he apparently had none for the shuttlecraft, or space wagons, or space bugs, as the strip called them.
Space bugs. Yeah.
So he had to make them up. His solution was pretty simple. Just draw Thunderbird 2.
In the Star Trek strip.
In the Star Trek strip, yes. So basically, in the Joe 90 Top Secret version of Star Trek, you'd often see the Enterprise deploying fleets of miniature Thunderbird 2s in green and red, with one minor alteration. Harry reversed those forward-facing wings.
Oh, really?
Easy way to disguise Thunderbird 2 there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he got away with it, yeah. Wow,
yeah.
How funny.
But can you imagine being given a project where you wouldn't know how big it was, probably. They just didn't have the sense of it. But then just being told, OK, Richard, so I want you to write and draw this new Space Precinct comic. Here's a picture of Ted Shackelford, one of Rob Young, in the Simone Bendix, and a couple of alien shots. Can you go and write it and draw it now, please?
Yeah, how odd. Similar things happened with those old Doctor Who annuals. Do you remember, in the 70s, there are a few with Tom Baker that were released before his TV adventures were screened. And it's just him in sort of weird generic clothing. There's no floppy hat and scarf and all that. It's just him in a kind of a weird sort of pale cream suit, sitting in Bessie.
Wow.
Very strange. That's all they had to go on with these publicity pictures of Tom Baker, before he had his costume.
Yeah, but I suppose at least the show had existed for some time before then, so there was some backbone to base it all on. But for this, they're just like just the title, a ship, and a few people, and guessing, right, well, this thing looks pretty big and it's going to travel around the universe, so I guess it lands on planets.
Oh, God.
Nope.
Yeah, now I wonder how Trekkies feel about that. Are they considered canon? How would they work on that, I wonder?
Oh, they can't be, surely. I don't know. If you
Mirror
are
universe, perhaps.
a Star... Well, could be part of the multiverse. But if you are a Star Trek fan, Podsteron, and you know how these were received or what you think of them, please do let us know. Email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
Yes. Have you got any pictures of these Thunderbird 2 shuttlecraft? Or
I believe that Chris Randomiser Dale has some pictures, which I'm sure he will post very shortly on the podcast listeners Facebook group. So pop along to facebook.com/groups/Podsterons and have a look there.
Oh, brilliant.
There you go.
Nice.
I think, though, that's the end, though, isn't it, right now? This is sort of the end, pretty much?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. That's the end of this week's
Skip a Fact. You say that's the end of this week's Skip a Fact. I don't think we're ever likely to have any other Skip a Fact in any future podcast.
You never know.
Oh, tantalising.
Well, it's impossible to tell because very much like the randomizer, FAB Facts is quite random.
Yeah, if we get another Skip a Fact, though, I'll eat my hat. Anyway.
You heard it here, Podsterons. We'll have to hold Richard to that, and hopefully in a future podcast you'll hear him eating on his hat. Sorry, Richard, do carry on.
That's quite all right. As ever, now people have been getting in touch with us at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Don't forget, we've asked you to send in your audio files for next week, our 100th pod, and we'll be talking a little bit about that later on. However, we do have this audio message from Mark Simpson Wedge, and it's a rather special one too, so have a listen to this.
Hello gentlemen and Podsterons, it is I, Mark SW, with a very special message. As you may know, I've been a dedicated Gerry Anderson fan since his shows were reshown on the BBC in the early 90s. And tomorrow, 5th of May, it will be my 30th birthday. So I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Gerry Anderson for being an important part of my life. And although he's no longer with us, he still is my greatest hero. And I also want to thank Jamie and Richard for keeping the legacy going and allowing me to take part in it. Because not only did I support Firestorm on Kickstarter, but I also supported Gemini Force 1 and the Thunderbirds 1965 project. Now, in these times, things are very limited, but I'm still going to celebrate my birthday because I'm starting a new decade of my life. So, forgive me for stealing your thunder, Richard. I do have a bit of newsy news I'd like to share. So tomorrow at 6 PM UK time, I'll be premiering a special video on my YouTube channel. So just search for Mark SW. Originally I was known as Dalek SRAM. And then at 6:15, I'll be going live on Instagram. So if any Podsterons would like to stop by and have a chat and celebrate, be my guest. So once again, guys, thank you for making Anderson shows part of my life. Do take care, stay safe, and try not to go crazy. Cheerio.
Happy birthday, dear Mark. Happy birthday to you. There, isn't that nice? Well, happy birthday, Mark. I hope you have a great day tomorrow. That's Tuesday. We can only say tomorrow for as long as people are listening to this podcast on the day of release, can't we?
Yeah, that's a bit weird, isn't it? But
so if you're listening to it later, he's already 30 and had his birthday.
Yeah. Unless you're listening a year and a day after release, in which case it is his 31st birthday.
Yes.
Mark, you can come back and replay this annually.
Exactly. So if you are listening to this on the day of release, then yes, do connect with Mark and help him celebrate his 30th birthday. I mean, it's strange circumstances to be celebrating a birthday, so let's make it the best one possible. So there we are. Isn't that lovely?
Yes, thank you, Mark, and enjoy. Hope you get some nice prezzies and have a nice lockdown birthday.
I'm sure he will. Now, over on Twitter, people have been hashtagging us, #Gerry Anderson Podcast. I did see this one from Lindsay, who said, I've just read an article that shows there's scientific evidence that we forget things when we walk through a doorway. Is this why the Traceys need inventive ways to get into their Thunderbirds, so they remember what they're doing? That's quite interesting.
Yes,
that is odd, isn't it? And it does make sense that we forget things when we walk through a doorway. Who hasn't walked into another room in their house and gone, oh, what did I come in here for?
Yeah.
And it's that thing of walking through a doorway that makes you forget.
I'm always doing it.
It's strange, isn't it? Luckily, my new house is quite open plan, so I'm hoping that will improve my memory. That's the idea. Very few
I'll
doors.
be testing that one out very soon.
John McDonald posted a picture of his Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons Blu-ray, saying, great fun watching this in conjunction with listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast and the Chris Dale Randomiser podcast and the 50 years anniversary audio box set from the Gerry Anderson store. He says there's beautiful picture restoration from Network on the Blu-ray. Yes, isn't there just? Mr. Chambers spotted something on The Chase. Now, you know I love The Chase, Jamie. It's one of my favourite quiz shows.
Who doesn't love The Chase?
Yeah. Well, apparently there was a question. Bradley asked the contestant, which company made the Thunderbird car? To which Sean, the contestant, answered, Gerry Anderson. Yeah, you can see where he was going, can't you?
I mean, yeah.
Thunderbird car?
Yeah. Was that one of the options? I assume it's multiple choice, isn't it?
No, not at this point. This is one of his initial set of questions where you just have to answer the question. So he offered Gerry Anderson, as you would.
But it was wrong.
But it was, yeah, of course it was. Who did
Should have been Rolls-Royce, right?
No, not that Thunderbird car. The Thunderbird car.
Oh, the Thunderbird car?
Yes, not the car from Thunderbirds.
Oh, you see, that's what I wasn't sure what you meant there. I was like, well, surely Rolls-Royce is the...
No. Was it Ford made the Thunderbird? I don't know.
Ford Thunderbird? Yeah, that sounds like a thing.
It is now. Anyway, I'm sure we'll be told.
Or are you thinking of the Pontiac Firebird? I don't know.
Oh, now you're confusing me.
Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, I think we should.
I mean, should we move on to some Gerry Anderson news?
Oh, yeah, if you've got some,
leading us towards.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a tiny bit, so
Go on, then.
Let's have some Gerry Anderson news. Go on, Richard.
Can I?
Yeah.
What now?
Yeah.
News.
That's what it is. We've got Gerry Anderson news, and it starts with something we announced on Friday, just gone, Friday the 1st of May.
Oh, yeah?
And that is we are having a month-long Tracy Island make competition.
Oh, fantastic.
Now, Tracy Island may not mean a lot to you if you were not watching Thunderbirds in the 1990s or early 2000s, but to be honest, who wasn't watching Thunderbirds in the early 1990s and 2000s?
Yeah.
It was a big problem of how many people were interested in it because it created this amazing resurgence in fandom. Kids all over the UK watching it as it was reshown on the BBC. There was a new Thunderbird Tracy Island toy, both in the early 90s and the early 2000s. The first one was Matchbox, I think, and then Vivid Imaginations did the second one. And both times it was a #1 Christmas toy. It sold out, and there were many, many children left disappointed across the UK.
Aww.
So in response to that, Blue Peter, a children's magazine show that's been running since the 1960s.
Is that
right, Richard?
Yes, it's still going. I'm assuming it is.
It's still going,
in some
I think,
form,
yes.
right? Yeah.
They had a regular feature, which was the make feature, which is to give you little arts and crafts projects to do at home. And they created a Tracy Island make feature, which became their most requested fact sheet ever, with 100,000 requests in the first week after it was done the first time.
Amazing.
Now, Anthea Turner is the name most related to that because she was the one who did the make. And in fact, she still has the completed Tracy Island make in her house.
Really?
Yes. Now, we are running a competition. We're hoping lots of people are going to get involved all over the world, hopefully. Kids doing it on their own, parents and kids doing it together, adults doing it on their own. Anyone who wants to make a Tracy Island can make it. Pop along to the Gerry Anderson website and you will find a download of the original details, the original plans put together. Now, some of the things that they used there are no longer available, certainly in the UK.
Right.
Fairy liquid washing up bottles are no longer plain white cylinders with a green logo on. They're now fancy colours and all sorts of things.
Yes.
So you're going to have to find alternative materials.
Yeah.
But if you would like to enter, you've got a month to do so. You can email in photos of your make to tracyislandmake@gerryanderson.co.uk. Post them on social media with the hashtag TracyIslandMake. That's Tracy, Tracy, no E in there.
No.
And we will be picking winners at the end of May, in fact the first week of June. And your judges include me and world-renowned nuclear physicist Dr. Anthea Turner.
What?
Anthea Turner herself will be judging, providing her input and helping us select a winner and 5 runners-up. Now, the winner will get £250 British worth of goodies from the Gerry Anderson store. There will be prizes and certificates for the runners-up as well.
Yeah.
So, yes, make sure you enter. Just download the instructions and get Tracy Island making.
God, that's fantastic. Great competition.
I think it is rather exciting, isn't it?
Very nice.
Okay. More Thunderbirds-related news.
Yeah.
I hinted it last week that we'd come across something rather special, and we're bringing something rather spectacular and FAB to the Gerry Anderson store.
Yes.
So about 10 years ago, there were a series of books, Thunderbirds books, newly written ones, and we had a message about them a couple of weeks ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
To our podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk email address.
Yeah.
Written by Joan Marie Verber.
Mm-hmm.
So I got in touch with Joan because I thought, she'll be a fascinating podcast guest. So not only has Joan agreed to be a future podcast guest,
Lovely.
but it turns out that she had a small stock of her Thunderbirds books in storage.
Really?
Her stories include Countdown to Action, Action Alert, Deadly Danger, Situation Critical, Extreme Hazard, and Danger Zone.
Oh, I love the titles.
And copies of all of those books, in very limited numbers, will be available from the Gerry Anderson store very shortly.
Okay.
Now, they're available in very, very limited numbers. We're talking tens of copies in some cases of those titles.
Yeah.
Joan has very kindly signed all of the copies of Countdown to Action, which is the prequel story.
Okay, good.
So if you have enjoyed Thunderbirds Legends on our YouTube channel, then that's the story you're going to want to get involved with. All those are signed, and you can get them exclusively from the Gerry Anderson store, probably from this coming weekend.
Nice.
So from around the 10th of May, I suspect.
I mean, I'm assuming she's kept a couple back for herself.
Yeah, don't worry. She's keeping her own copies.
Yeah, good, yeah.
But I think this is the only way you're going to be able to get, nice, new, pristine copies, and especially signed ones. So thank you, Joan Marie Verber, for helping us with that. And you'll be able to hear from her on a future podcast in, probably 5 or 6 weeks' time from now.
Lovely.
That's rather exciting, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's very good.
Another exciting thing for fans of Supermarionation.
Yeah.
Richard, I know that you've enjoyed this thoroughly, haven't you? Nebula 75.
I have, yes. Well done to...
Well, if you've been watching it, tell us about it.
Well, it's produced by Stephen LaRiviere and the Century 21 team, who've done previous Thunderbirds 65 and all that sort of stuff. They shot it in lockdown, in their living room, just the three of them, in a corner. Beautifully done, though, and it tells the story of the crew of Nebula 75 on their journeys into the unknown.
Yes, it is very much like a sort of Fireball XL5-esque look, but in colour.
It's beautiful.
So, lovely homage to everything Anderson and Supermarionation, so do pop along to YouTube and watch that. Just search for Nebula 75.
And I think, judging by the tweets I've seen today, they might be making plans for another episode.
There you go. So more to come.
Possibly.
So go and watch the first one.
Yeah.
Now, finally, Pod 100 is coming up. Our next episode, this is Pod 99, obviously.
Yes.
So plus one from that takes us to Pod 100. I can't quite believe it.
No.
We said golden for our 50th thing, didn't we? So what's 100?
People don't tend to get that far, do they? So maybe there isn't.
Not really.
No.
Okay, our double gold podiversary.
Yeah, like it.
We want your audio clips.
Yes, please.
Short, 10 to 15 to 20, maybe absolute maximum 30-second audio clips, telling us what the podcast means to you, what your favourite moments are, and your hopes for the next 100 podcasts.
Wow.
Feels weird saying next 100, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So please do email in your audio files and questions and thoughts, etc. to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and we will play out a mixture of them in Pod 100, which is set to be a bumper edition, perhaps our biggest and longest podcast to date, do you think?
Really? Wow, you're setting us up for a fall there.
I know, well, but you're working on a special feature.
Yeah.
Chris Dale's working on a special feature.
Yeah.
Plus the randomiser.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be sort of sitting on my behind and
Great.
not doing
Just
very
letting
much.
it all happen around you, yeah.
Exactly, but there's a lot to cover in Pod 100. It's going to be a great one, so lots to look forward to, including some exclusive archive audio. Let's just say that.
Lovely. Great.
Perfect. Right, well that, I think, unless you've got anything, Richard.
Yeah, I mean, you say, you're about to head into the end of the news there, weren't you?
I was. What have you got?
I visited the Gerry Anderson store recently, Jamie, and as ever, I headed on over to the Space Precinct Unmasked page to see if anyone had left a nice review. Yeah,
of course, as we do.
Only to see that it was sold out. Now, to remedy this, I actually got an email today from Amazon saying, "Hi Richard, your package with 20 Space Precinct Unmasked will be delivered today. So I'm going to sign them and send them to the store."
Brilliant. I'll have them standing by with a pulper.
Yeah, great.
No,
you need
of
some
course.
bedding for the guinea pigs, don't you?
It is a very popular book. So if you want to be alerted when it's back in stock, just pop along to the Space Precinct Unmasked page on the Gerry Anderson store. There's a little tab on the right-hand side which says notify me when available, something like that.
Yeah.
You pop in your email address and you'll get an automatic notification when they're back in stock.
Yeah. Good. That's it.
Okay, fine. Well, now, on the very Richard Jamesy note of Space Precinct Unmasked, that's the end of the Gerry Anderson news.
That was the news. Richard James News. I think we should actually have the Richard James News.
Oh, yes.
No, actually, at the moment, it wouldn't be a very full item, I must say. And in news just in, Richard got up and had a shower, then sat looking out the window for 3 hours. That sort of thing. I mean, not very exciting.
Well, that's a lie, Richard, because I know all the stuff you're up to
I have been
right
quite
now.
busy, that's true.
You are a busy boy, and there's more to come, so stand by for
Absolutely. You're listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast. Don't forget, please, to subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on. And while you're there, why not leave us a rating and a few kind words, and then share us with your friends so they can get to hear us too. Now, over on our Facebook group, people have been posting their childhood pictures. They've been taking part in a weekly Gerry Anderson Zoom quiz, live streaming episodes, and generally keeping each other's peckers up. For example, Mark Gardner said, I wanted to let you know about these 2 little books that were published in the 90s. If you have little Podsterons or just want to make some fun yourself with things from the recycled bin, then they're well worth seeking out. The models are made from nothing more than cardboard and plastic bottles, so you don't have to be a professional model maker to build them. And he included pictures of the Thunderbirds Make Your Own models and Make Your Own Stingray models books, both of which he has. So this rather ties in with your Tracy Island make that we were talking about earlier, Jamie.
Well, it does, but I also saw that one of our Podsterons has been actually making a Tracy Island.
Yeah,
hasn't he?
Yes, that's true. Yeah. It's great. It's a great thing
he's beaten us to it.
Yeah, a great thing to be doing, especially at this time when we've got a little bit more time on our hands. See what you've got in the house. Chris Dale seems to have reignited a love for the TV show Trapdoor, following last week's Randomiser, of course. Paul Strapp says, I thought this was a brilliant intro this week by Chris. Trapdoor is one of those timeless and brilliant programmes. It's a big Dick Spanner. Did you ever see Trapdoor?
I remember watching it vaguely as a kid.
Yeah.
I never got massively into it.
Visually and stylistically, it's a little bit Dick Spanner. It's stop motion, of course, and it's quite fun. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Dick Spanner. Hugh Morn then said, what other non-Anderson references might appear in future Randomiser segments during the podcast? Perhaps something new, or maybe an old reference that has potential to return. And Matthew Alderman Harris said, I'd love a Dad's Army intro, maybe with Corporal Jones saying, don't panic, at the sight of the Randomiser. And then Abby said, well, maybe some old cult favourites, like Batman, for example, or even Doctor Who, which would be fun. Over to you, Chris. What do you think? And now, finally, Jamie, have you got time for this?
I think I probably do, yes.
David Monday posted that he's seen a few games and personal quizzes like this going around during the lockdown on Facebook, so here's an Anderson version to keep you occupied. So, Jamie, I'm going to ask you a series of questions, okay?
Which I won't be able to answer, yeah.
Your first or earliest memory of an Anderson show?
Oh. The Terrorhawks, I think. The one where the Overlander is stolen and the Zeroids destroy the bridge, which the name escapes me at the minute, but
okay.
Yeah, probably that.
Your favourite Anderson show when you were a child?
Oh no, there's Terrorhawks as well.
Okay, I think there's a theme here, because then the next question is, favourite Anderson show now you're older?
Oh, no, probably not. Maybe not Terrorhawks.
Okay.
I mean, I could say Space Precinct, you know.
Really?
Yeah. Because with the release of the two-parters on the YouTube channel,
okay.
I've kind of been enjoying those again.
Yeah. Favourite Anderson episode of any show ever?
Any Anderson episode of any show? Not Terror New York City. Let's actually say Trapped in the Sky.
Okay.
Still, I know it's a really obvious one, but it's just so cool,
Yeah.
and all the elevator car landing stuff. It's a rescue which shows off international rescue so well, and sets up the premise so well.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to explain.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. So yeah, that.
Favourite Anderson theme tune? I know people are playing along at home as well.
Yeah, it's a tough one though. I'm going to say the opening from Stingray.
Oh yeah.
Because the kind of the percussive stuff, and it's just so exciting and cool.
Favourite Anderson character and why?
Officer
No, you don't.
Hubble Orin.
You don't have to say that.
Well, it's obviously not that. Virgil from Thunderbirds. Because, as we've said, he's hero, artistic, musical, blah, blah, blah.
Favourite ship or craft?
Oh, see, Thunderbird 2 it is very cool. So I have to stick with that, sorry.
Favourite launch sequence?
Well, there's loads of these.
One more after this.
Favourite launch sequence. I kind of like Stingray, actually.
Yeah.
Again, the kind of the huge descent into the cockpit and the unclamping and the rushing out of the tunnel. It's got a sort of slightly more basic charm than Thunderbirds, but it's still overly elaborate. So yeah,
fair enough. And
Stingray.
This one, I'm looking forward to the biggest impact of Anderson shows on your daily life.
Well, I mean. My daily life, I think, is probably the biggest impact on my daily life.
Yeah, there you go. So there's some good questions there. So head on over to our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, and find David's post there, and then you can answer all those questions as well beneath his post, and that'll be interesting to see. Finally, on Twitter, or rather no, on Facebook, Keith Wickenden posted, I've just read on Twitter that Gerry Anderson shows are going to be streaming on BritBox. Anyone else heard that?
Do you know what? I forgot that in the Gerry Anderson news.
I thought so.
Isn't that ridiculous?
I thought we're not allowed to mention that.
No, of course we are. I've just forgotten.
There you go. Now's your time.
I always do that, though. Yeah. Okay, so an addendum to the Gerry Anderson news is that the Gerry Anderson collection is coming to BritBox. 10 episodes of Thunderbirds and the pilot episodes of Stingray, Joe 90 and Captain Scarlet are all arriving, any day now, I think.
Right, great.
Is it 7th of May, I think, they're planning on releasing those?
Okay, so this week, yeah.
Yeah, so it's slightly disappointing that they're only putting those episodes up. It seems weird not to put at least a full series up. But I imagine they're testing the waters. So, if you would like to see more Anderson stuff on BritBox, then the best thing you can do is go and watch them.
Yeah.
So go along. There's a 30-day trial on BritBox if you're in the UK.
Yep.
It's all in the UK. So go along and watch those. Tweet BritBox to say that you've been watching them and enjoying them and you want more.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd love to see, obviously, all the Super Mario Nation stuff, live action, Terrorhawks, new Captain Scarlet. It's all possible to get it all there.
Absolutely.
So pop along and watch that, and hopefully we'll see a complete Gerry Anderson collection on BritBox before too long.
Nice. Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Yeah. Nice. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me of the news item, which is probably fairly major, which I forgot.
Yeah.
Whoops. Okay, before I forget anything else, let's have part 2 of this week's interview, which is Paul Franklin.
Oh, yeah.
Visual effects supervisor and consultant from DNEG. Very smart chap, long-time Gerry Anderson fan, and he's going to be telling us about the Thunderbirds link to DNEG and how it was founded, a bit about what the film might have been like, and also what show he would remake if he could, along with a load of other stuff. So here is a bit more Paul Franklin. So, and then in terms of a show like Thunderbirds, it sounds like in the mix of stuff you were watching that was Anderson, that Thunderbirds was not perhaps the kind of the peak for you in terms of your enjoyment, or am I misreading your top 5?
I would say that Captain Scarlet was my top show in those of the original Anderson puppet shows. Thunderbirds was a very close second, though. And of course, Thunderbirds also had the 2 movies that went with it as well, which brought extra sort of value to things. When you saw they would pop up randomly on a Saturday morning on ITV, and you'd say, "I didn't know there was a Thunderbirds movie." And I remember Thunderbirds I'll Go, and then Thunderbird 6, wasn't it, the one with the gypsy moth with the giant
the tiger moth?
Yeah, the tiger moth. That's it. Tiger moth. That's it. And I think I've actually got somewhere a program from the premiere of Thunderbird 6, which an old friend of mine, he had it. I think he'd actually gone to the premiere of the film because he's a few years older than me, and he gave it to me as a present. I got it up somewhere in a drawer upstairs somewhere at the I think was it the Odeon on Leicester Square? I think it was the premiere.
Probably was, yeah. I'll keep a hold of that. It's probably worth a few bob now.
Yeah, I should do, shouldn't I? It's in a drawer somewhere.
And then in terms of the technical fascination and the vehicles and the special effects, compared to other stuff that was around the time, I mean, obviously you were probably watching Scarlet and Thunderbirds repeats through the early 70s. So even by then, they were already coming out for a decade old.
Yes, they were.
How do they compare to other contemporary telly that was on?
Well, I don't think anything else had even anything close to the production values of those shows. I was also watching Doctor Who, which is famously homespun in its production values. It's the best that the BBC can manage, and watching Doctor Who taught me the art of innovation, like how to make a triumph out of a necessity, and then Star Trek, which had much higher production values, but didn't feature anything on the level of the same sort of level of miniature work. I mean, what you would see, obviously, in any given episode of Thunderbirds or Scarlet or later on UFO, and then ultimately Space 1999, is there was very little generic stock footage. Apart from, obviously, Thunderbirds had the launch sequences of the Thunderbirds, but then they'd go off and do something that was unique to that episode. Like rescuing some giant airliner that's in trouble, or saving. I remember the Sidewinder was a particularly favourite episode, where it falls into the fiery pit, and everything was unique. And so there'd always be something new and something special, and so you wouldn't become overly familiar with it. And I just loved the imagination, the invention that went in with these things, because they felt real. Not just because of the use of physical models, obviously, because that was the way you did things at the time, but again, the intention that had gone into it, the care that had been taken to make something like the Crab Logger feel like it was a real vehicle that might actually do something, as it lays down a freeway behind it, as it churns its way through rainforests, which is based on a real thing that General Motors had designed for the World's Fair back in the 1960s. The freeway builder, which just flattened the countryside and built a 12-lane freeway behind it. All those sorts of things, everything felt believable. And also there was a consistency to it, that when you saw a new machine, it seemed to have a logic that was informed by what you'd seen before. So when you saw, crazy aircraft, like I think was it the Sky Flash, the big airliner that appears in Thunderbirds at one point.
Fire Flash with the
Fire Flash, yeah, that's it. Yeah, with the double thing. That's a Fire Flash. That's it. It felt like it was informed by. Oh yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's it.
I've got it on my mug.
It's informed by a design philosophy which had gone into everything else in the show, and certainly that's the case with. By the time you get to UFO, all the vehicles seem related. They're all part of the family. And of course, that's because there's a consistent design philosophy from somebody like Derek Meddings going through the thing, which makes a huge difference. And then when you get to Space 1999, and Brian Johnson is in charge of designing the spacecraft, and particularly the Eagle, and and it's obviously 1999 borrows ideas from 2001, but then makes them very much their own. I'm intimately acquainted with both of these properties, and they're related, but they're unique, in their own way.
Yes, very related, because Kubrick was going to sue at one point, wasn't he? There's a great telegram or something that he'd sent to the studio saying, 2 years away in date, 1999, 2001. The style, the look, this is completely riding on our coattails. We must sue them.
He's not wrong, actually. The opening sequence in Breakaway, when they go out to check the nuclear waste dump, and you've got the big spotlights, floodlights over the area, and everything is shining in through the windows, and it's the pit with the monolith in it on the moon. It's a complete lift from that. But great artists, mediocre artists borrow and great artists steal. And what you do is you take something and you make it your own. And that's what that quote always means. It's not that you've stolen it maliciously. You said, that's a great idea. How can I use that in my show and make something special out of it? Kubrick himself famously would steal things from other people, and make it his own. So all's fair, I think.
Exactly. It's just all creativity is rooted in some other layer of creativity decades or centuries ago, and you can't avoid that because we're all human. So, okay, we hit Space 1999. You've shown me your slightly busted up Eagle there, which you've got. Your original Eagle, which this is the one you had as a kid, right?
Yeah, that's the one I had as a kid. It's gone a little bit wobbly in places. But it is the original one that I bought probably when the first series was still on the TV. And one of the marvellous Dinky toy models that were made. Dinky would always do this rather strange thing, though, of changing the colours. I think they had an excess of metallic green paint, and everything would end up metallic green.
They had a metallic blue one and the white one, but
yes, the white one. Yeah. No, the TV physicist Brian Cox tells me that he has the white one, and I was because we both agree this is the greatest spaceship design ever in science fiction. But he's got the Eagle freighter, I think it is, with the little nuclear waste flasks, which
that's it.
I'm very jealous of that one.
It is a great design. Well, I won't show you over there on a shelf. I've got a 44-inch studio scale eagle,
wow.
And it's a beauty.
I did have a large plastic model kit of the Eagle at one point as well, which I built. But then I cannibalized it and turned it into another spacecraft when I was a teenager.
Paul. How could you? What were you thinking?
Well, I was practicing my craft.
Fair enough. Well, it's clearly led you to where you are today. So Space 1999 as perhaps the pinnacle, being the final show really of that setup.
Mm.
How did that feel to you at the time? Because like we said, you were about 10. It was quite adult. It was quite intense, quite serious, long episodes, relatively kind of ponderous and slow in parts. That's not a criticism, but just, the style. So what were your feelings at the time and your reflections on it now?
Well, it was, there was nothing else like it on the TV. I mean, it's the look of the show, the consistency, the quality of the images you were watching was so far in advance of anything else, whether it came from America or from the UK. It looked like a movie. And obviously it was out the year before Star Wars, so we'd not seen anything like this on the big screen either, other than, if you'd watched 2001. At the age of 10, 2001 is quite a tough watch for a kid. I mean, I love the film. I'm absolutely massive fanatic for that film. But that's certainly not action-packed. So, there were maybe things like Silent Running, the Doug Trumbull film. That was the only other thing that had that kind of look and feel to it. So I clearly remember watching the first episode of Space 1999, which I watched around at my friend's house who lived next door to us, because they had a bigger colour TV than we had. So it was more fun. My dad was always very keen to have the smallest colour TV he could buy. And he felt the big screen was vulgar. But my friend, also called Paul, his dad had bought a big, 27-inch TV, which was, I think, big for the time. But I remember there was a problem with the transmission, that it either screened an hour early or an hour late. I think it was an hour early. There was there was some sort of strike going on at Granada. And I think they rescheduled it at the last minute and brought it forward an hour. And I think we got to see it just because we were so excited. We had turned the TV on an hour in advance. and they showed it on Granada TV in 1976. And I remember just being absolutely blown away by it. It was because it's quite a tense build-up. And then it finishes with spectacular, large-scale destruction as the moon gets blasted out into orbit. And I remember being particularly excited at the scene where Alan Carter's flying his Eagle furiously, trying to catch up with the moon, and then just walks into the back of main mission where they're all watching the flickering TV message as they're seeing the last TV transmissions from Earth that they can pick up. But that stuck in the mind. But also it was very scary, all the stuff with the guys with the white eyes and getting ill. And it has a very tense atmosphere. Alan Carter, Nick Tate's character, is the sort of safe space you can go to because everybody likes him in the episode. But, kind of Koenig and Helena Russell are kind of at each other, loggerheads with each other. And Roy Dotrice's Commissioner Simmons is a slimy piece of work. And
he gets what's coming to him eventually, though, doesn't he? So that's fine. Philip
Maddock is the grumpy old former commander of the base that's being pensioned off. It's great.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, isn't there?
Yeah, there really is. It's got a lot of character.
And what about Barry Morse? Because I often myself draw the parallel between Professor Bergman and the Doctor in Doctor Who.
Absolutely.
Being that character that you trust implicitly.
Yes, absolutely.
I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, I felt, the loss of Barry Morse in the second series, I felt was, that fundamentally changed it for me. I mean, I loved Catherine Schell as Maya and Tony Anholt as Tony Badeschi. That was great. But Barry Morse's character, he brought such integrity to the role. And he was very much like John Pertwee's Doctor at the time, who is sort of very understated and just tells it very matter of fact and is very kind and gentle. And so that would be, as a kid watching it, 10 years old, you'd say, oh, well, he's the friendly one. Everyone else is a little bit scary and spiky. But Barry Morse would sort of bring this level of humanity and warmth. And even if, the techno science that he's spouting is complete nonsense, you buy it because he says it with such conviction. He had a very good way of phrasing his lines.
Yeah, or just the same as John Pertwee in Doctor Who.
Precisely, yes.
A lot of techno nonsense and all sorts of rubbish going on there, but you believe them. And that's part of the magic. The scene in Black Sun where Bergman and Koenig are kind of toasting with the, whatever it is, 60-year-old brandy to everything that might have been, to everything that was, that he delivers there, Bergman delivers, is so warm and tender. It's a lovely
it is
thing.
Fantastic.
Whenever I think of him, I just think of that moment, and he was great. So you brought up season 2 thing, so on your head be it. At the time, watching this transition from this, dark, dramatic, and relatively ponderous thing that was quite scary to season 2, where it's a bit more rubber monster of the week, some humour in inverted commas being brought in.
Yes.
How did that feel at the time?
Well, I missed the regulars that I'd gotten used to. I missed Paul Morrow, who I like because he was called Paul, and also because Francis Hancock is very good in the role. Carno, the computer expert, I felt was a loss. I really missed the old theme tune. The original theme tune is just an absolutely spectacular piece of work, and it's so bold. It's switched between flat out rocking guitar and massive orchestral bombast.
It's crazy, isn't it?
The second season, it feels, the theme tune is good, and the opening sequence, the title sequence is good, but it feels very much more dated. It doesn't feel like it's making a big statement. It says, well, this is trying to be more like what everything else in the 70s was. I like the fact that the second series did use quite a lot of, my memory is that there's quite a bit of location work going outside into, I guess, Black Park or somewhere like that, or
exactly, yeah.
Which, but that opens it up a little bit. And Catherine Schell, I thought, was fantastic as Maya. But I did get a bit fed up with the Tony Vedeshi's attempts to brew his own beer and things like that. That was a bit silly. And so years later, when I discovered that it was Fred Freiberger, who did the third season of the original Star Trek, had been brought in to produce season 2. I think on the one hand, as I understand it, he was instrumental in getting the thing renewed, but then he took it in a direction. I mean, I heard. I don't know if this is an apocryphal story that he was trying to think of a name for the planet of the week that they were going to, and saw the road sign showing the exit to Luton, and then said, "Well, we'll call the planet Luton." And, is that true?
Exactly it. I've got a great bit of archive tape of Dad explaining that exactly how that happened. That he delivered this storyline, and it had the rules of Luton on the top. And it was, he was being driven down the, whatever it was, the M25, I guess, or the M1,
I think.
maybe.
The M1,
yeah, and he saw the sign and was just like amazing, and he had no concept of actually how Luton is, not a glamorous place name at all. Sorry, Lutonites, it really isn't.
No. Yes, exactly, the planet Bromley or something. But
well, the planet Slough, equally.
Planet Slough, Slough. Yeah, indeed.
Thank goodness it wasn't. So we'll leave behind the 70s a little bit. By the time Dad's Next Wave Productions came along around 1983 with Terrorhawks, I'm guessing you were maybe slightly too old for that, or were you still watching kids' telly, Paul?
Well, I did. I would watch as a science fiction fan, and certainly in those days, sci-fi fans would watch anything that was science fiction. It didn't matter if it was made for kids or if it was in a different language, you'd watch it, because there was so little science fiction content or futuristic content. And that's why I think a large part of why the Gerry Anderson shows from the 60s and 70s are held in such great esteem and affection is because they did science fiction well. They did it properly. Even the second series of Space 1999 is still actually a pretty solid piece of TV sci-fi. So I remember coming across Terrorhawks, because I don't think it wasn't properly shown on the network, I don't think, was it? It popped up on it would pop up on a Sunday afternoon on Granada TV. Yeah. And we come across it sort of randomly, because of course in those days TV listings were either the Radio Times or the back page of the Guardian in our family. I'd scour them, and you'd only get 24 hours notice at best of what was coming up on the telly. And I would catch the odd episodes. I don't think I've seen the whole series of Terrorhawks, but the model work was fantastic. I thought that the puppets didn't work quite as well because they were much more caricatures, but I did love crazy stuff like, what was the character that looks like a little baby, but then suddenly speaks in an old person's voice as well?
Yeah.
It would switches back and forth. I thought that was wonderfully demented, and I just thought, how did they sneak this into what I think is meant to be a kids' show? But, and then
wonderfully demented is probably the right phrase for Terrorhawks, I'd say.
And then
I love Terrorhawks.
Yes, years later, I worked in a video games company as an animator in Liverpool, and one of the guys I worked with, he had worked as a model maker on Terrorhawks, and so that was one of his very first jobs. I think he'd helped build the tank that got lowered out of the big spacecraft.
Yeah.
So,
who was that?
I can't remember. John Crosby, something like that. I can't forget his name.
John Lee.
No.
I'm trying to think. Anyway, yes. So, small world, paths cross all the time, stuff like that, right? So.
Yes, absolutely. So that was, and he was telling us a bit about the techniques used to create explosions and things like burning rubber pellets, which I think you're not allowed to do now.
Yeah, black rubber dust is definitely not allowed anymore, is it? But I think lots of naphthalene and all sorts of other stuff.
Full as micro balloons, all those sorts of things, all banned. Very bad for you. Look great on film. Very, very bad for you.
Look amazing. But that was Steve Begg, who was the third in the line of people who'd started off as very junior, given a chance by Dad, and then went on to, do fairly well and be fairly well recognised in the industry.
I've worked with Steve Begg many times, and Steve was our miniatures supervisor on Batman Begins. So he supervised all of the miniature unit for that. And then I worked with Beggsy on the second Tomb Raider film, Tomb Raider 2, because he was the visual effects supervisor on both of those. There was a couple of other things that he did. Oh, of course, the James Bond films as well. So he was the regular James Bond VFX supervisor for a long time, which I think, again, keeps that connection between Bond and the Anderson world, because, of course, dear old Derek Meddings was the regular Bond VFX supervisor all the way up till GoldenEye, which was sadly the last thing he did before he died. So when you have that DNA, that Anderson DNA is there in the miniatures of James Bond.
There are Anderson fingerprints crossing back and forth across all sorts of things. I mean, that John Glenn directed, what did he do, 5 Bond films, who ended up directing on Space Precinct and was friends with Dad for a long time. Yeah. Derek, Steve, Richard Gregory, who would go in and work on bits and pieces, even Bill Pearson as well. It's amazing. It's all interwoven, isn't it? So by the time Terrorhawks is on and you're now working in this video games company, I'm assuming that the seeds have been sown for your future. So how do you go from watching Anderson shows and enjoying the visual effects through to computer games and then getting into what you do now?
I don't think my path was completely set in the early 80s, because I was still at school, and then originally I was intending to be a scientist. My father's a biochemist, and all my family were scientists in the biological sciences. And so I thought, well, that's what I should do. And so originally I was going to try and go and study biochemistry at university. But when I was about 18, I had a sort of Damascene Road moment, which was that, I'm not really cut out to be a scientist, I didn't think, because it's really quite hard work, actually. A lot of people don't realise how hard science is to get it right, and it requires an awful lot of patience. I just don't think I was cut out for it. And so I switched to what I was doing in all my spare time, which was drawing pictures and making little comic books and things like that. And I went off to art school, and I actually studied fine art. I was a sculptor and a painter. But my love particularly of science fiction, movie, visual and special effects, particularly special effects, the physical sides of things, informed a lot of what I did at art school. And I would build these big sculptural installations, which are effectively walk-in movie sets. You go into a room, and I'd skinned it all with corrugated steel. I built this big sculpture, which was ostensibly constructivist, which is a Russian form of cubism from the early 20th century, but was really a giant robot monster that was taking over the room, and I had sound effects and lighting effects and things like that. And at the same time, whilst I was studying fine art, I was getting more and more involved in doing student theatre with friends of mine. And I was designing the sets and the posters. I tried a bit of bad acting, decided that wasn't a good thing to do. And we eventually started making short films together. And I got into editing and sound recording, and eventually I got involved in making little animated graphic sequences for it, because I was very interested in the idea of using computers to make art. And suddenly everything sort of came together. I suddenly realized there was this thing of movie visual effects, which was being turbocharged by the advent of advanced computer graphics at the end of the 1980s. And this brought together everything I was interested in. And so I set out to try and get a job as a visual effects artist working in television or film in about 1990, just after I graduated. But there was a big recession on at the time, and there were no jobs really to be had. And so I ended up in what appeared to be a recession-proof industry, which is video gaming, because people like video games. And I went off and became an animator for a games company in Liverpool called Psygnosis. And that worked out really, really well, because basically it was just full of people like me who were massive fans of Star Trek and Doctor Who and Star Wars and, of course, all the Gerry Anderson shows. And so we started creating our own versions of, I guess, the things we'd watched as kids, particularly Captain Scarlet and Thunderbirds, in the video games. You know, we would make these little 3D worlds, which were very informed by that kind of approach to model making and visual effects, but doing it with computer animation. And that, I think, is really where my path was pretty much set from there on, that I was going to end up making, hopefully, cinematic imagery using these new visual effects tools, but still very much informed by an understanding of how we got there through all of the the physical effects work that had been done in all the years before computers came along.
Amazing. Okay, so you fast forward just a few years, and we get to the founding of DNEG, which we've already briefly discussed before the recording, and has a particularly interesting Anderson link to it. So,
well, there's
tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Well, there's actually more. There's more than one Anderson link. So the first real link is that the motivating force behind Double Negative, as it was back in '98 when we founded it, is a man called Peter Chang, who's a well-established UK-based visual effects supervisor. And Peter had been an effects animator on things like Highlander, and he worked on Labyrinth. And I met him on a film called Hackers, which is directed by Ian Softley, who's a friend of mine. And is the first starring role of Angelina Jolie. And I was one of the junior computer animators on that film. And Peter had started out, his career had started at Medding's Magic Models. So he worked for Derek Meddings. He was with Steve Begg and Angus Bickerton. So again, part of that Anderson DNA being passed down the line. And Peter was approached by Polygram Filmed Entertainment to create the visual effects for a Thunderbirds movie that they wanted to make in the late 1990s, which I can't remember who wrote the script, but it was going to be directed by the British director Peter Hewitt. And we'd worked with Pete on The Borrowers. So I was one of the effects animators on The Borrowers, and Peter Chang was the visual effects supervisor. And Double Negative was built and designed originally to create the visual effects for that film. And we were going to be the biggest visual effects studio in Europe just on the back of that movie, which was, I think we were anticipating hiring maybe 50 people. By comparison, today, Double Negative is 8,000 people. So it shows you the scale, how the industry has changed the scale. And we were all gung-ho to do this. You know, we did a whole bunch of tests. I remember we spent a day with a helicopter trying to figure out if we could track the movement of a helicopter using GPS, which was a fairly exotic technology at the time.
Wow.
And we actually, I remember spending a whole day over at Pinewood Studios going through a exhibition print of Titanic with Peter Hewitt and Peter Chang, watching it basically frame by frame on a Steenbeck to analyse the visual effects. And my job was to wheel the print around on a full little hand truck, because it weighed a ton. 10 reels, I thought. But what happened was that Polygram got cold feet, and they suddenly said, we're not totally happy with the script, and they withdrew the green light. And it was going to be a $75 million film back in 1998, which is quite a lot of money at the time.
Yeah.
It's about $120 million in today's money. And they withdrew the green light, but they still decided they wanted to have their own in-house visual effects company. And they built us around a smaller film called Pitch Black, which introduced Vin Diesel to the world, which actually still holds up pretty well, that film. And so, unfortunately, we didn't get to work on the Thunderbirds film. Thunderbirds was then, they did make the Thunderbirds film, as I'm sure you're aware, a few years later, with Jonathan Frakes of Star Trek Next Generation fame directing it. But we had nothing to do with that. We weren't involved in that at all. To be honest, I think they should have made the script they had back in '98, which was was an epic sort of reimagining of the TV show with, I remember the plot was, there's a bad guy who lives on the moon and he's built a giant space vacuum cleaner that's going to hoover off the atmosphere of the Earth and transfer it to the moon so he can walk out in the open. He's been living on the moon so long he can't go back to Earth because of the gravity. So he wants to walk under an open sky, so he's going to steal the Earth's atmosphere, which at the time seemed truly ludicrous. But actually, I think it very much anticipated the scale and ambition of, say, the films of Roland Emmerich. And, we watch disaster movies these days in which, a spaceship the size of the Earth lands on the North Pole or something, and everyone goes, yeah, fine. And so I don't think that plot line would have been out of place in the modern world.
Yeah. And how much like Thunderbirds from memory did that original script feel like? I mean, I'm assuming it was more Thunderbirdsy than the Spy Kids type version we ended up with in 2004.
Oh, absolutely. No, it had all the principles. It had, you had a bit of an origin story. Scott, Tracy, and Alan. And Alan is introduced as the young tearaway of the family, who's sort of brought back into the fold to be part of international rescue. Scott and Virgil are the kind of the backbone of the rescue team. John is stuck up on the space station. He got more to do because, of course, there was the giant space vacuum cleaner thread meant that John could be actively involved rather than just being stuck on the space station watching Netflix, I presume you're doing these days. But you had Tracy Island. I think the production designer was John Beard, who actually was the production designer on Hackers and has worked a lot with Ian Softley. And John's team had come up with, I thought, the reimaginings of the spacecraft, of the main vehicles, Thunderbirds 1, 2, and 3, were absolutely fabulous. And I don't think the film that was ultimately made, the designs that I thought they were rather pedestrian reimaginings of the spacecraft, of the vehicles. They should have just stuck to the originals, were better. But the ones that John Beard's team had come up with were quite flamboyant, but they captured the spirit of the original vehicles, I think. Yeah. So that would have been fun. We were going to do them as miniatures as well. They were going to be physical models.
Oh, lovely.
So, yeah.
God, so that was a bit of a blow then, losing that.
It was, because it delayed the start of Double Negative by, I think probably a whole year. Wow. We were scratching around trying to figure out if we could get the company going, and then Polygram decided they wanted to do this movie Pitch Black, and they would build us on the back of that. But that was the last thing they ever greenlit. They, Polygram was broken up and unbundled after that, and I'm not sure who owns the rights to the Thunderbirds properties these days. Is it ITV Studios?
ITV's got it now, yeah. It went from Polygram to Carlton to Granada to ITV, or some sort of order in between there. So, Pillar to Post comes to mind. But clearly that wasn't the end of Double Negative.
No, not at all.
You went from, we might be hiring 50 people, goodness me, to now having 8,000.
Yes. So, I mean, obviously in the current climate, it's a tough time for the film industry in general. There's a lot of people, particularly people in physical production, all those special effects people I was talking about earlier on. I mean, pretty much everybody got laid off in the first week of the current crisis.
Yeah, very difficult.
And they're all there waiting to get going again, and I'm sure everything will roar back to life.
Yeah,
once people can physically get back into the studios and get back into the facilities. Visual effects, we're lucky that we can work remotely because we largely work on computers these days, and so we can work over the internet to our the big server farms that we have in our facilities. But it is a challenge because there's not as many films being made or TV shows.
Tough stuff. Well, I'm sure I heard Netflix say that right now they actually have enough stuff in their pipeline to keep almost every visual effects seat in the world busy for the next 3 years or something ridiculous, if they could put it all through.
Yes, I hope so. It's, certainly the streamers, Netflix, Amazon, the other ones, Apple TV, Hulu, all these things they're becoming an increasingly important part of the livelihood of big visual effects companies or any visual effects artists, because there's such a voracious appetite for content, and science fiction, fantasy, those are they're big attractions on these channels. So that keeps people like me busy.
Paul, if you could click your fingers and have greenlit immediately a reboot or film or series of any Gerry Anderson property from the past, which would you choose and why? You can only have one, though, and you'll never get a chance to make any others.
No, okay. I have to think carefully about this.
Don't mess it up. You've only got one chance.
I think actually it would probably be one of the earlier shows, and I'm going to say Fireball XL5.
Wow.
And the reason why is that Fireball XL5 is, my memory of it, is it's a hugely optimistic show. That it's about, the square-jawed Steve Zodiac and it's Venus, isn't it? Who's
Dr. Venus.
And Professor Mathematic and Robert the Robot and Zuni the Lazoon on board this amazing spacecraft, which has this beautiful sort of detachable nose cone and everything. And they go out and they explore the universe. And they're going out. I remember in the original show, every planet they would arrive on seemed to have precisely 2 aliens, because I think that would be. And there was, I do remember a couple of episodes where I'm pretty sure that they were reusing the sets left over from 4 Featherfalls, where 2 silver-skinned aliens living in a western town, I seem to recall. But what I love about it is that it's this very optimistic view of the future, which Thunderbirds is as well. I mean, Thunderbirds is an optimistic view of the future. Things, regularly go wrong because otherwise international rescue would have nothing to do. And I love that. I love the optimism of the original Star Trek shows. And because it's the whole galaxy is your canvas for Fireball XL5, each week Steve Zodiac and Venus can go off and explore a new planet. But if you think about it, you turn them into real people. You make Fireball XL5 into part of some real space exploration program that's going out there to find out what's out there. It's a more physically based, a little bit more Dan Dare kind of version of, I suppose, essentially what made the original Star Trek so good. Because the technology in Fireball XL5 feels more immediate. Fireball itself is essentially a sort of super duper space shuttle. So rather than, it's not, it doesn't require matter transmitters to send people down to the planets. And, you can feel that technology is a little bit more believable. Also, I think Fireball XL5 is perhaps the first time you have in one of the Anderson shows the regular launch sequence, because you would always have that brilliant bit, the rocket would fly along the rails and then come off and the sled would come off, which is a real thing. That was actually based on real technology at the time with the sled, the horizontal sled launch. Yeah, that'd be a good one too. Also, it had a fantastic theme tune, which still pops up on, Radio 6 plays it every so often. Yeah. It's just great.
It's a great karaoke number.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. But so yeah, that would be a good one to reboot, I think.
Okay. You could go anywhere expecting you want. That. I wasn't expecting that because I thought you'd be a Space 1999 fan or maybe Scarlet, but
Space 1999. I know that there was an attempt to. I know that Warner Brothers were looking at it a few years ago, weren't they? I remember talking to an executive at Warner's.
There's always people talking about doing it. Always approaches to ITV, and for whatever reason, it never.
But I do remember talking to an exec at Warner's, and I realised that they'd completely failed to understand what the show was actually about. And I explained it to them. They said, God, I wish you'd been here last year. We'd be making this thing.
Oh, it's so depressing, isn't it? This is a lot of the reason why these things don't get made is, that people see the brand name or they're like, this has got some recognition, let's make this, but they don't understand it. And I think that's partly what happened with the Thunderbirds 2004 movie. But let's not be mean and pick that apart. Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to do. Paul, just to round things off, you've kind of done it already, but if you could summarise from your perspective now, especially being somebody in the industry, what makes an Anderson show and what has made them so timeless and given them the longevity they have had and continue to have?
I think you can't really put your finger on one individual thing because there are so many things that are working together in unison. I mean, obviously there's the basic premise behind each show is so solid and so strong. And then that's coupled with fantastic scripts, the best script writers at the time. And you've then got brilliant cast in a lot of, even the voice casts of the original animated shows, people like puppet shows, Shane Rimmer, and there's the name's gone out of my head at the moment.
David Graham, Matt Zimmerman, Ed Bishop.
Oh, I mean, Ed Bishop, people, absolutely perfect. All those just wonderful, wonderful voice actors that could bring such character to the part, and of course Sylvia Anderson as Lady Penelope, which just gives it that level of integrity. But then everybody else who's on the show, it's bringing that, everyone's at the top of their game. Derek Meddings and Brian Johnson are people who are clearly hugely ambitious in the effects work that they're making. And the model makers, the cinematographers, the directors. You watch a show like you watch Space 1999. We were talking about Dragon's Domain earlier on. It's Charles Crichton as the director. It's one of the the great British directors. And I remember when was it Val Guest also directed some episodes as well, I think, in the first series of 1999. And everything's absolutely top-notch. So everything comes together. But then you've got this guiding vision, which is, I guess, it's Gerry Anderson's vision for this vision of the future, which is technology-led. It's ambitious, it's optimistic, but it's also aware of the fact that there are dangers involved. Things go wrong. Your giant airplane crashes straight into Big Ben, or the nuclear waste dump that you foolishly put on the dark side of the moon blows up. Because you've got to have something goes wrong somewhere,
of course,
in order to give a bit of drama. But it's just the scale and the ambition of all of them, right back to the original puppet shows. I mean, you think about Stingray, which ostensibly is a sort of a story about people in the military and some futuristic military, but they discover a whole undersea kingdom that is not happy about the fact that the surface dwellers are, invading their territory. And so it seems perfectly reasonable that the aquamphibians are thoroughly fed up with the World Aquanaut Security Patrol. So it's
completely right. Yeah,
all of that comes together, and I guess for me, I guess it reaches its absolute peak in Space 1999, particularly in that first season, where everything works so well. The scripts are so brilliantly put together. Everybody's taking it really seriously, in terms of the filmmakers. They're not saying, this is just some science fiction nonsense and we're going to, knock it off for the kids. There's no, we're going to make a real serious piece of television. We're going to treat this with the utmost respect. And so that's why, I can have a Twitter conversation with people about Dragon's Domain or the Testament of Arcadia or Breakaway. And, we're still taking it seriously all these years later because they hold up. They really hold up, particularly when you see the HD remastered versions of things. You just think, this just looks like a movie. I used the HD remaster of Space 1999 as a reference in when we were making Interstellar. And we were studying... me and Chris Nolan studied a couple of the episodes, looking at the way that the lunar landscape had been created. How far could you push scenic paintings outside of windows and things like that, rather than doing a blue screen or a backdrop and things. It was super helpful, and the miniature work is just astonishing. So it's the scale that is conveyed with those miniatures. Beautiful alien landscapes as well. The Guardian of Piri with that extraordinary wedding cake confection. Of the giant computer is it's brilliant stuff. Really holds up.
It's also so nice to hear that it's literally directly influencing stuff like Interstellar and hopefully will continue to do stuff. I know that Chris Nolan's quite an Anderson fan.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah,
well, I'll tell you one last thing I'll leave you with is when we were at the Oscars for Interstellar in 2015. After you come out of the show and you go to the governor's ball, and there's all the movie stars are there for a short while, and you get interviewed by the likes of BBC Radio, and they want to know which famous people did you meet, and they all want to hear about the latest greatest hottest star that you've met, and all I wanted to talk to them about is that I'd had a conversation with Martin Landau. Who saw me wandering around with my little golden man, and he beckoned to me and says, "I've got one of those." Because he won it for Bela Lugosi and Ed Wood, and it was great having a little chat with him. It was lovely.
God, that is a lovely full circle moment there. That's absolutely that is awesome. Paul, thank you so much. This has been brilliant. I've
You're very
thoroughly enjoyed it, and we could carry on for some time, but I must let you go.
Absolutely.
If our listeners would like to follow you on social media and see what you're up to, how can they do that?
I am at Paul J. Franklin on Twitter. That's where I pop up.
Fantastic. And what should they be looking out for coming out from DNEG in the near future?
Oh, well, obviously
you're allowed to talk about.
All the release schedules are rather up in the air at the moment.
Yeah.
So I know that my colleagues are working very hard to complete the latest Fast and Furious movie. I'm doing a little bit of work on a movie for Disney at the moment, which will be out next year. And we've got lots of TV shows. my colleagues in DNEG TV are hard at work on the Christmas special for Doctor Who. So people will be pleased to know that's still going to happen. It's still in the pipeline. The Doctor will not be denied. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different things going on, and then we'll just have to see what happens in the rest of the year, really.
Yeah, of course. Okay, well, Paul, good luck with everything. Thank you so much. It's been brilliant.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Take care.
Oh, thanks, Paul.
Yes, thanks, Paul. Do go along and follow him on Twitter. I think he's Paul J. Franklin. And thank him for his fantastic contributions. Paul, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on the podcast. Now, what have we got in terms of interview features next week, Richard James?
Well, Jamie Anderson, I thought it might be quite a nice idea, as it's our 100th podcast, and what a moment that is in and of itself, to revisit a few of our favourite interviewees over the last, 104 weeks? 100 weeks? Yeah. 100
weeks.
99 weeks.
100 podcasts.
Well, wasn't one of them like a prequel?
Oh, yeah. See, the previous one's 99, and then we got the prequel one, so that's 98 weeks. The previous 98 weeks.
Okay. So, anyway, it's a little personally curated collection of just a few of the guests that we've had on over the past couple of years, put together in a nice little package. I thought it'd be nice to revisit that next week for our 100th. What do you think?
I think that is a blooming marvellous idea.
There we are. Yeah, great.
And will be the perfect accompaniment to another feature that Chris is working on.
Oh, lovely, yeah.
Which, shall we reveal what it is?
Go on, then.
Well, it's the Genesis of Thunderbirds story.
Oh.
Featuring exclusive, never-before-heard interview footage with Dad.
Yeah.
That's Gerry Anderson, in case you were
not
not aware at this point.
Yeah.
No, sorry, with my dad, Gerry Anderson. And also some original reporting footage from the BBC of the Lenged mine disaster, which is the German mine disaster which inspired Dad to create it. So you'll hear about him talking about, listening to it, hear the actual reporting, which is so lovely because it's a fantastic BBC, RP,
Lovely.
The rescue took place more smoothly than anyone could possibly have imagined. It's just so lovely. So enjoy that and some other bits and pieces which Chris is going to put in as well. So thank you in advance, Chris, for doing that.
Great.
So a double feature next week to celebrate Pod 100. And don't forget, please do send in your audio clips to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk so we can play them out as well.
Yes.
It's going to be a mega pod.
It really is, isn't it? Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Now, just as a little lead into that, to whet your appetite, I thought Pod 99 might be the perfect opportunity to revisit a little feature that we used to have every week here on the podcast. Are you ready, Jamie?
Oh no, what have you got?
It's Quickfire 5!
Oh!
Now, Jamie, I've done a little A to Z here, so there are still 5 of them, but I'm sort of, you'll see, I'm making my way through the alphabet. So, are you ready for these?
Yes.
Alpha or Altor?
Oh!
A.
Altor.
Oh! Fireball or Firestorm?
Oh, Firestorm, sorry, Fireball.
Popkiss or Podley?
Podley.
Oh! SIG or SPA?
Oh, SIG.
And finally, Zuni or Zill?
Ah.
I mean, they're both as bad as each other.
I was going to say, they're both so annoying. Zuni.
Yeah, there you go. Well done, there you are. Quickfire 5. Just to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, I feel it. When someone says boo,
yes,
and surprise you, and you get that little kind of ripple of adrenaline that makes you feel a bit sort of pins and needles.
It's like having your first coffee of the day, isn't it?
Well, I'm on my 4th coffee of the day, so it may well be over caffeination that's caused this feeling.
That'll be it.
Yeah, great.
There you are.
Well, thanks so much for doing that.
You're
I think I need to relax to get over that.
Okay. Any ideas?
So what better way than, I thought we could hand over to Chris and the Randomiser so we can just sit back and relax and enjoy whatever it might bring.
Perfect. I'll put the kettle on.
Okay, here we go.
"25 minutes of episode. Or no oxygen. Hallucination. A slow and peaceful drift through dream to real eternity. Because it's just nothing. The ultimate negative. Poison. Pain. Yet more pain. This body of peace perhaps for some future archaeologist to fit into an historical puzzle. Chris Dale from planet Earth, first and last commander of the Randomiser. On the other hand, it is only 25 minutes long, and surely watching it and living would be preferable to throwing myself out into space without an air pack like this. Although admittedly there's not much difference between death and watching this episode. Well, it's here. The big one. The worst one. The single worst Gerry Anderson episode of all time, in my opinion at least, is here, and it's now. Brace yourselves for the Protectors with It Could Be Practically Anywhere on the Island. I am so sorry.
Well, bother.
I'd be a happy man today if I had a head of hair.
She's arriving now.
I really...
So far, so good.
I really hoped we wouldn't get here at all. I really hoped that... honestly, I hoped I might be dead before we got here, because this is just the...
Good morning, Miss Reader.
Not only the worst Gerry Anderson episode of all time, in my opinion, as I said, this is one of the worst pieces of television I have ever seen in my entire life. And I feel really bad that this is, I think, our fourth visit to the Protectors on the Randomiser. So this is one of the earliest. If you're not familiar with the show, this is, this is fairly early on in our Protectors marathon to be exposed to something like this. I will say, this is not representative of the series in any way at all.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
This is a...
Mr. Gill, I'd say discretion is the key word.
This is a comedy episode.
Oh, right you are. Discretion, of course.
And not only a comedy episode, it's a bad comedy episode. Now, an action spy crime show like this
to help set it all up.
Thank you very much.
Doesn't quite lend itself to a comedy episode as such. And there we get Robert Vaughn making a comedy turn to the camera in place of the regular shot of Big Ben that usually opens the opening titles. Yeah, Harry is in a hotel in Malta, and this lady has had her muffins snatched. Is it muffin or muffet? I can't remember, and I honestly don't care. Is a little doggy. So it's a little kidnapped doggy, this episode. But yeah, please do not judge the entire series on this episode, because that would be like judging the work of Gerry Anderson solely on this episode. Oh, Parade of Shame. Tony Barwick? Oh no. Oh, and director Robert Vaughn. Yes, this is the only episode of any Anderson series I believe was directed by a member of the cast.
All the way from Little Rock,
Arkansas?
US of A.
Yeah.
That's something. Doesn't help me like it anymore.
Name's Gal, not Gel.
Oh, thank you anyway.
Thank you.
He's looking at the camera as well, our cuddly waiter friend.
Can you just try and tell me exactly what happened?
Oh, but the puppy is so sweet.
What are you trying to do to me, LaRoche?
That's the message, darling. Joe Flynn won't be here for 48 hours.
48 hours? You mean we're stuck with that for 2 days?
Oh, don't be beastly. It's only a little puppy.
All right, the plan needed a dog, and we got it. Now what's happened to Flynn?
Unavoidably delayed.
Well, you know I'm sick, and Flynn knows I'm sick, and I'm tense. I'm a very tense person.
Oh,
Shut up, right? So these two agents have kidnapped this adorable little puppy. I'm not sure what breed he is, but he's so small and so white and so cute.
I put her on the counter next to me. And when I was done registering, I turned around and she was gone. The basket was gone, the bow was gone, and the dog was gone.
What kind of a dog is it?
She's just a little poodle.
Little poodle, okay.
Tiny one.
Tiny. Now, how...
And this actress who's lost her dog is Linda Staub, who... I'm not sure if this is the first time she met Robert Vaughn or if they were already dating by this point, but they were married the year after this episode was made.
Oh, she's just a puppy.
Oh, the adorable little puppy. You know, as angry as this episode makes me, and this episode does make me so angry.
And I'm very serious.
That puppy is just...
Does my baldness bother you? I mean...
so wonderful.
Am I still attractive in spite of it?
Anyway, this enemy agent is a hypochondriac obsessed with the fact that he's going bald.
I'd be a happy man today if I had a head of hair.
Shut up. And,
A full head of hair.
I will kill you.
I probably never would have turned to crime.
Cut back to the puppy.
Harry, that lady...
Yes, this guy is played by Sherwood Price, who had appeared in, I think, 2 previous episodes as an American protector. But he was also Robert Vaughan's, I think, manager / business partner / agent or something. So, yeah, he kind of...
Hey, if you come muffin,
I think he sort of marched into Gerry Anderson's office at the start of production and said, right, I'm Sherwood Price and this is Robert Vaughn, he's the greatest guy in the world, and but this show is rubbish and it sucks and it's awful. And Gerry said, well, why are you taking it on then? Because, baby, the money's brilliant. I believe at the time he was also dressed as a cowboy. I could be wrong. Maybe he just had a silly hat. I wouldn't put it past him.
she wouldn't mind. I'm probably borrowing myself. Because, I still want her back.
Okay.
So having kidnapped a dog, we have to provide for a dog. But what do dogs like to eat? Oh. Oh, no.
Wrong again, huh, you miserable...
And as adorable as this dog is, whenever it's on screen with Sherwood Price, it looks terrified for its life. And he does not know how to handle animals. Don't give it back to him, no.
Eat. She's not eating, Baroche. Now, why isn't she eating? This is your department.
He's practically forcing this dog's face into the plate.
We've got a problem. I mean, a major problem.
Yeah, you.
You don't think she's sick, do you? Well, I think she's sick, and if she's sick, I'm sick.
No, darling, she's not sick.
And then why doesn't she eat?
She's pampered, probably on a special diet.
Diet? Like what? What?
Oh, I don't know. Could be anything. Steak, tartar, caviar.
Caviar, of course, yes. I knew a lapdog once.
And I would say that, Robert Vaughan's direction on this episode is competent. It's nothing spectacular, but it's nothing dreadful either. But there are some... Oh...
What do you eat?
Sherwood Price has got a little dog around the throat. Yeah, it's nothing spectacular, but occasionally there are shots that show his inexperience at such things. Like there was a shot there of
Don't look.
Sherwood Price, and that's just what I'm going to call him because I suspect he's largely playing himself, and also I can't remember the character's name and I don't care enough to look it up. But it looked like he was a giant about to sort of bust through the ceiling of the room. The shot was framed so awkwardly. Anyway, Sherwood Price and his female associate, who I can't remember the name of, but I kind of feel sympathetic for her. She's one of the few people I feel sympathetic for in this disaster. Have followed Robert Vaughn and Linda Starb down to the bar.
See the lady in the black dress? Black dress. Over there. Oh, yes? But don't look.
And Price is going to try to find out what the dog eats.
Yes, sir. I'll have 2 of whatever she's drinking.
This is our plot so far, and without giving too much away, I can honestly say it gets even stupider.
Hello. My name's Costa. Felix Costa.
Hi.
Do you,
Yeah, thank you, Linda Starb, for treating that introduction with the contempt it deserves.
Hey, that's a rusty nail. Aw, you sure do know how to make a girl feel at home. To your good health, Mr. Felix.
I think I looked up Sherwood Price's acting career not too long ago, and I'm sorry, this is not going to be a very productive commentary, but the thing is, talking about a bad comedy is so difficult because all you can say is that joke doesn't work and that joke doesn't work and this actor doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Let me tell you. Feeding Muffin really is...
And you can't really talk about it within the context of The Protectors either, because it is just not an episode of The Protectors. This is Robert Vaughn on holiday with some people he knows.
I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, no.
Film a bit of silliness in the hotel.
You feel much better?
No, she's just a little baby. She's thinking about it.
Tell me something. Does she like roast beef? Oh, what about chicken? I do a very nice cacciatore. No, that's too spicy. Oh, please, no, don't worry.
Now we have a public scene in the bar.
What do you mean, don't worry?
What?
Price got covered in his drink.
Are you a crazy lady?
Don't rent a tuxedo. I've been ruining my personal plumes.
John P. Hackett Jr., Culver City, California.
No, we don't need you. We don't need another red-faced, balding, middle-aged man yelling.
I'll get you right in your head.
Oh, now they're shoving each other.
What does she eat? What does she eat? The dog! The dog!
Liver cooked in milk. What else?
Oh, he's fainted because it was all too much for him. Oh, God. We ended one scene with him, now we're back with him. In his blue spotty pyjamas. I'm at a complete loss to continue, I think.
It's all over for me, isn't it? It's all downhill.
How was the puppy? How's the puppy? Please show us the puppy. Puppy! No. Oh, God, I mean, good. We've got scenes of him trying on wigs.
Oh, terrific. That's terrific. I look 20 years younger. Rejuvenated, alive, vital.
Why did Robert Vaughn feel it was necessary to put his business partner's midlife crisis on screen?
Now leave me alone, will you? Where do I meet Flynn?
At the castellated house.
Oh, good, we're outside. I think this episode is shot on Malta, and it, I was going to say at least Malta looks quite nice, but it looks like they've gone to the most rubbishy, dull part of Malta imaginable. It's just a bit of coast, with some, rocks and bushes and such. It's quite a breezy day, though. Anyway, Sherwood Price and his female assistant lady have come out into the middle of nowhere to meet their contact, who is none other than...
Oh! Flynn, don't do that, my angina!
Vernon Dobchev, who lots of us may remember from things like Doctor Who, and I think he was in a Bond film, and he is thankfully treating this story
the dog to its owner
with absolute contempt. He knows this thing is so far beneath him, and he's walking around with this air of,
some way it will be found.
I can barely suppress my contempt for you all long enough to be here.
The dog's owner fly to New York?
On Friday. I checked it all out.
Meanwhile, Sherwood Price is wearing a yellow jacket with...
There is the microfilm.
Well, he's wearing a white woolen cap with what looks like... He basically looks like a baby's bottle at this point.
Don't. You may well pay with your life.
Oh, please. Please. No. Meanwhile, Harry was spying on them because, Sherwood Price, despite being very inconspicuous at the hotel, has clearly aroused his concerns.
Hi. Listen, I think I got some good news for you.
Oh, the episode's halfway through. Not much longer to go. Vernon Dobchev spying on all this kissy stuff. Oh yeah, if you haven't guessed by this point, Harry is the only one of the protectors in this episode, which makes it even more atypical. This is not...
If you'd gotten a bigger dog...
This is not the protectors. This may as well just be Robert Vaughn. Like I said, Robert Vaughn and his friends messing around in a hotel.
Liver cooked in milk. Come on, little fella. Come on, baby.
Oh, poor little puppy.
Lovely dins.
At least this actress is taking good care of him. Her and Vernon Dobchev are the only people I really sympathise with this one. I mean, even Robert Vaughn I do not sympathise with at all, because he directed this thing. Oh, right, so meanwhile, Sherwood Price is trying to attach something to the dog's collar. Microfilm. But he dropped it! And it landed in the dog's bowl while the dog was eating. Oh no. What has happened? What predicament could have ensued?
He swallowed it. Mary, he swallowed it.
Oh no. Do you remember, like, spy shows?
Spiced with a little vodka.
Weren't those good? Do you remember when Robert Vaughn used to play this guy who'd, like, run around with a gun and sort out the bad guys? I like that, Robert Vaughan.
Oh, you know, everyone's been so nice. They really are concerned about little Muffin.
Oh yeah, they just look overcome with concern. They're sat at the bar doing nothing.
He was.
Yeah. You know him?
Mm-hmm.
But who is he?
Trouble.
Hold her still, LaRoche. That's an order.
And here we have the most contemptible scene in the entire episode.
Will you please stop her looking at me?
Because we've got to get the
You can't go through with
microfilm out of the puppy. The only way to do this is to make like we're going to cut the dog open with a knife.
Start packing.
So we had two glorious shots there of Sherwood Price holding a knife over a puppy. The comedy music will tell you that this was funny and charming. It was not. I have visions of this poor little dog ending up in therapy. You know, lying on its back on a therapy couch with its little paws up in the air.
Come on, honey, come on, move.
Anyway, Price and his girlfriend have now just abandoned their rooms. They're making a run for it, leaving the puppy to roam free and adorable. But then Dobchev is watching them go. Oh, and I recognise sitting next to Dobchev is a stunt man.
Look!
Puppy! Oh, now everyone's running into each other. Oh, Price has dropped his medication, and Stubb is running after the puppy, and now the stuntman is running after Price, and Vaughan is running after the stuntman, and now we're in the lobby, and the comedy music is... Oh, yeah, everyone's running into the mincy concierge guy. Dobchev is wondering how much longer it will be before he's on the plane back home. I think the stuntman... Yeah, we're now chasing each other through the kitchens here while chefs are yelling. I think the stuntman is Alf Joint, who turned up in Space 1999 a few times. I believe he was Steiner in the very first episode of Space 1999. And now he's trying to kill Sherwood Price, which I can side with. I can see where he's coming from. I'm presuming this is some colleague of Dobchev's, but you know, if this was just somebody who is utterly fed up to the back teeth with his smarmy mugging and just wanted to kill it, he is literally doing like a Looney Tunes back and forth, running from left to right and right to left while Alf Joint is taking shots at him at this point. Anyway, Harry has knocked out Alf Joint. Price is praying. I gave that up quite a long time ago.
My name is Costa, Felix Costa. That man who shot at me, he's very dangerous.
You know him?
Me? Well, no, I don't know him. Why should I know him? Of course not. Certainly not. Certainly I don't know him. You think I know him? That's ridiculous. I'm a guest here, a registered guest. Well, wait, check it.
Shoot him. Shoot him.
Listen now. I'll tell everything. I can stand anything but pain. Please don't.
I gather, you know, I actually met Robert Vaughan at his autobiography signing in London once, and annoyingly, his autobiography doesn't mention much about the Protectors, but I gather he and his wife used to wheel this episode out every Christmas and have a good laugh at it. I'm not sure whether they were laughing at it because it's so bad, or if they were just, you know, you reach that stage on Christmas Day where you're just too drunk to really care what you're watching. Anyway, Vernon Dobchev is now hunting the puppy on the beach with his pistol.
Come here, you stupid animal.
This poor puppy.
Now you'll be a good dog.
Oh, but thankfully Harry has stepped in before he can beat the puppy to death with a stick. And suddenly the puppy is nowhere to be seen. It's up on a cliff. Somehow it teleported away. To begin a new life somewhere else, somewhere better.
Reward to anyone who finds my little muffin, $10,000.
Oh, here we go.
Start looking, babe. Start looking.
Yeah, everyone running around yelling. Pandemonium. Price is checking all the ladies' legs, of course, because that's...
Jonathan?
Well, we've run out of comedy, so this is our comedy substitute, which once again involves our balding, middle-aged, red-faced guy yelling. Oh, did I mention they were standing by a pool, and can you guess what's about to happen? Yeah, everyone's throwing him in the pool and falling in the pool, and people are getting out of the pool and being pushed back in. Yeah, red-faced guy's back in the pool, Price is already in there. His assistant is trying to help him out of the pool, but he's going to pull her in.
What's going on?
Hell.
They seem to be having such a good time, I didn't want to tell them.
Tell them what?
I found her.
Yay, puppy.
We found the dog. Dog? What dog? Her dog. What do you mean? Forget about a lousy pooch. We're having fun.
And now Vaughn is in the pool. Starb is pushing the red-faced guy back in the pool, and Starb fell in the pool after him. This is highly entertaining stuff, and I don't want to slash my wrist at all.
Seen the details for the latest atomic power plant. Joe Flynn's...
Oh, right, the plot. Okay, yeah, because the puppy swallowed that thing, didn't he?
We're going to transport the film to the States using the dog as a canine courier.
Hidden in the collar. That was my idea.
No, it's too late to justify all this stupidity now.
It's a terrible thing.
Yeah, Joe Flynn's associate was going to meet...
I can't believe Tony Barwick wrote this. He must have been so drunk when he wrote this.
What do you think, Doctor?
Well, I can positively say that our little friend no longer has the foreign body in his stomach.
You know what that means?
I don't understand.
This is the moment it's all been building to.
Arkansas farmer told me once about a cow who swallowed a fly, and the fly fell asleep in the cow's stomach, and when the fly woke up, the cow was gone.
Dog poo.
You mean...
The episode has been...
The microfilm could be practically anywhere on the island.
Leading up to the big revelation of dog poo. You know, when that's the climax to your episode, I can't, what can I say? Well, that was It Could Be Practically Anywhere on the Island, and that was as awful as I remembered it. Two things really stand out from that one. No, actually three. One, the fact that it ended. Two, Vern Dobchev is giving the performance that, he treats this episode with the contempt it deserves. And three, that puppy is so cute. But otherwise, my God, this is the worst thing I have ever seen with a Gerry Anderson name on. I am so glad I'm done with it now.
Oh, he's finished. Sorry, come on. There we are.
Oh, God, sorry. Hello.
Yeah.
I'm here. I was paying attention
great.
to that.
Yes, well done, Chris. That was... Yeah, that was great. That was
Yeah, what a fascinating.
Actually, we we couldn't make it all the way through because
no.
Wow.
10 minutes of the worst piece of television potentially of all time. I think you could be right, Chris. I mean,
thank goodness we've got Chris Dale to watch these shows, so we don't have to.
Yes, yeah. I think that is a mercy we can all be grateful for.
Yeah.
That nobody ever has to watch. I mean, what? Even the episode title. It could be practically anywhere on the island.
What a weird one. How strange. It's like, but they were literally making it up as they went along.
Yes.
Isn't it?
I mean, Tony Barwick generally is a great writer, but it was something experimental there. And as we all know, sometimes experiments fail catastrophically.
Yes, that's true enough.
And I think we can put this down as a catastrophic failure.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, what do you think, listeners at home? Have you seen that particular episode? And if so, what were your thoughts? Is it the worst Gerry Anderson episode of all time? Or, as Chris said, the worst piece of TV of all time? What do you think? Is there anyone out there who actually likes it? Let us know. podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
Yes. Stolen puppy, comedy spy thing, weirdness. I mean, yeah.
Really odd.
Would you rather watch Torchy than that? Possibly, because at least it's over quickly.
Yes, we need to be thankful for small mercies. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Talking of being over quickly, before we finish the podcast, talking of being thankful for small mercies, I just need to revisit the plot of peril. So way back in Pod 95, I set you, for old time's sake, a plot of peril. I gave you 3 items, and I challenged you to send me, either as an audio file or a little bit of text, no longer than maybe 20 or 30 seconds, a Gerry Anderson-esque piece of TV plot that ties in these 3 things. Have a listen to what the plot device gave us in Pod 95.
Are you ready? Here comes your character.
Oh, it's Thunderbirds Tintin.
Ooh.
Right. Okay. A location? Yeah. Oh, it's the Big Pit Mine. That's the museum near you, isn't it, Jamie?
That is the Welsh
Wales.
Museum of Coal Mining. How strange that should come up.
Right, there you go. The Big
Big Pit Museum.
Museum in Wales is your location. And finally, then, your household item. Yeah. A garlic press. So there we go, Podsterons, send in your ideas and I shall read out the winner next week for Pod 100 and I might even have a special prize for the winner.
Gosh, have you had many entries so far, Richard?
3 or 4, yeah, that's all right.
3 or 4?
Yeah, well, so, they've got a 1 in 3 or 4 chance of winning the prize. If you want to stand a chance of winning the prize, you've got to be in it to win it, so send in your plot of peril.
I look forward to hearing possibly all of them.
Probably, yeah. Why
in
not?
Pod 100. Great. Right, well, that's it.
Yes.
So this week, your to-do list includes to go and download the Tracy Island instructions and start your make.
Yep.
To stand by for action in terms of reading Thunderbirds books, which you'll have to order from the Gerry Anderson store.
Yep.
To sign up for a free trial of BritBox and watch all the Gerry Anderson episodes that are going to be on there, all 13 of them.
Yep.
And to send in your audio file and plot of peril ready for Pod 100. I mean, it's not much to ask, is it?
That'll keep you busy. Something to do, isn't it? And also, watch The Protectors. It could be practically anywhere on the island, and let us know what you think about it.
Yes. Maybe not.
Yeah.
I mean, lockdown is tough enough already,
Have we
without
not
introducing that.
enough?
Exactly. Right, so that is it for Pod 99. It is our last double-figured podcast ever.
Of course, yes, wow.
From next week onwards, we will be into triple figures.
Yeah.
We will be there for another 18 years.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? Yeah.
Is that right?
No, I think
must
it's
be
slightly
right.
more... Oh, is that right? 18, and then we'll be in 4 figures.
Yeah.
Only 18 years? Well, we could do that, couldn't we? We could make it to
well.
Pod 1,000. I mean, it's
that
possible.
Sounds bizarre.
Wow.
Yes.
Gosh.
1, 2, skip a few, 999, 1,000. It'll have to be to actually get there.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, that was fantastic, Richard. Thank you so much. Thank you, listeners, for being part of our first 99 podcast. And we can't wait to be in your ears for Pod 100, the bumper edition with 2 special features and probably some other special stuff as well.
Woohoo!
Oh, is there a hashtag for Pod 100?
Oh,
I mean,
no.
hashtag Pod 100?
Okay, hashtag Pod... There you are. You just do it. That's numbers, not letters.
Yeah, well, yeah, otherwise it's too long.
Yeah.
Hashtag POD 100.
Right, done.
Good. Okay, right, we're going to go now. So goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
I feel like we're not doing enough to celebrate Pod 100.
Oh, really? What, are you going to dress up, are you?
Well, I might put some clothes on for the next one, which you'll be very grateful for.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we should do something though. Can we do like a live stream or a live watch along?
Okay, how would we go
something?
About doing that on the Facebook page or the YouTube channel? Or
Well, I tell you what, I've got this great new tool called StreamYard,
right,
which I want to try, and I think that we can have the two of us on screen and watching something.
Okay.
So maybe it ends up being like a kind of Pod 100 mini Fab live watch along type thing.
Nice. Okay.
We could watch an episode of Space Precinct or something.
Okay. Yeah. We could do that. Yeah. Or
I thought you'd be more enthusiastic about Space
I've
Precinct.
seen them
Richard.
a few times now, but
fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine. Yeah.
Okay.
As
Well,
long
let's
as it's
look
one
at
that I'm in.
something.
Don't pick Body and Soul that Orin wasn't actually in.
Oh no! Of course,
No.
we'll pick the one which is all about Orin.
Exactly.
What's the one with the fitness skipping rope thing?
Oh yeah, but that's the only scene.
Oh, okay. Not
I mean,
that
a
one,
nice scene, but I think that was my only day's work on that one. No, you've got to pick something like Predator and Prey.
Or the one where you snog the
Two
monkey.
Against the Rock would be good. I mean, that's a good classic episode, isn't it?
Two Against the Rock would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we'll do that.
All right.
Well, I'll get to work on the live stream thing, and maybe that'll happen live on the day of release of Pod 100 in the evening, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, I'll put it in the diary.
Okay. Yeah, just pencil it though. I don't know what's happening yet.
Quite. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
All right.
Right, you go do that,
Okay.
and I'll speak to you at some other time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.